Hello and welcome to our number talk. Today we are looking at the expression 43 plus 19. And what we do in a number talk is we use mental math. That means no paper, no pencil, to try to figure something out. And then we come back together and talk about all of our strategies together. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and do that. Pause the video, figure out 43 plus 19 in your head, and then when you have the answer, unpause the video, and let's look at all of our strategies together. So the first thing we can do is we can use the associative property to regroup our addends because the associative property is the grouping property. And so let's look at making tens. And so normally we would look at the first addend and see how far away it is from a 10, but let's take a look at our second addend here, 19. See how close it is from the next 10? All we need is one more and this 19 turns into a 20. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab 1 from our first addend. We're going to add it to our second addend. And so take a look at what we've got. Instead of our 43 plus 19, I'm going to take my 43 and I'm going to break it up into a 42 plus 1. Because there's 42 left over and there's that 1 that I'm going to take over and add with this 19. And what I'm going to do now that I have 3 addends is I can use my associative property to regroup. So now I'm going to add my 1 and my 19 because I know that's 20. And now I've got my 42 plus 20, and that is going to be 62. So hopefully that's the answer that you got, 62. So we can also use some friendly numbers. So friendly numbers are numbers that are just easier to add. And so let's take a look at this first addend. So we could take 43 and we can change it to a 40. Just because 40, anytime you can get it to a 10 or a 5, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to break this up into a 40 and a 3. And this 19, I'm just going to take that and make it into a 15. Just because, like I said, you can get into a 10 or a 5, you're going to be good to go. So now I've got 40 and 15. And I'm going to use my associative property to regroup them, but I also need to put them in a different order. That's what my commutative property is for. So I can change the order of my addends because 5 plus 8 is the same as 8 plus 5. That's the commutative property. So now I'm going to add my 40 and my 15 because those are really easy to add mentally. That's 55. And now I've got my 3 and my 4 left over. So I'm going to add my 3 and my 4. And that is going to give me my same answer of 62. And so the third thing we can do here is place value. So let's take a look at this. Probably a few of you might have chosen this strategy to begin with. You're going to take both of your numbers, 43 plus 19, and you're just going to look at them like expanded form. So you're going to take 40 plus 3, and then you're going to take 10 plus 9. You're going to break them up into 10s and 1s, and that's just going to be the easiest for you. And so let's take a look at how we would shift this. We would take our 40 and 10. We're going to need our commutative property to reorder these, and our associative property to put them into new groups. So 40 and 10, we're going to do that first. That's going to be 50. 3 and 9, we're going to do that second. And 3 and 9 make 12. 50 plus 12, that makes 62, because we're always going to come back to that 62. Another thing we can do is we could add up in chunks. And so adding up in chunks is where you take the entire first addend, 43, and then you take your second addend and you break it up into place value, kind of like what we did on the previous strategy, but you're going to keep the first number together. So we're just going to use the associative property here to regroup. Instead of 10 plus 19, I'm going to add my 43 and my 10, because that's always easiest when you add a number and then a multiple of 10. So that's going to be 53. Then I need to add my 9 more, and that's going to get me back up to my 62 as always. We can also look at compensation. So compensation is when we look at a number and we say, you know what, which one is closest to the nearest 10, kind of like what we did and our very first strategy of making it 10. But this time we actually just change the numbers. We're going to take this away from this 43, and I want to make it a 42, because I'm actually going to take that and I'm going to put it over here. And I'm going to take my 19, I'm going to add that 1 back to it, so that's going to be 20. So I actually change my problem. Now I've got 42, and now I've got 20, but 42 plus 20 is really easy to add. That's 62. So those are all the ways that I could think of. If you found another way, that's fantastic. Go ahead and add it as a comment on the video. Teachers, if you would like a copy of the slide deck for your own use in the classroom, you can find it on my website, 5minutemath.net.